So you've opened her, like you went in strong, straight line to the girl, you didn't calibrate before. You set the frame from the very start, which is like man to woman. You started getting her to react to you, like just plowing. You're doing. She is on the receiving end. She's under your influence. You might have challenged her a little bit, trying to reach that sexual hook point. Not every girl is necessarily just gonna stand there and take it. Okay, like when you challenge a girl, you go up like, oh, are you from LA? It's interesting. You know what? I hate LA. You're too stuck up. Or, hey, what's up? I'm Julian. Just like blunt and straightforward like that. Some girls are going to challenge you back. Okay, and they basically do that in the form of tests. Okay, we call these congruence tests or shit tests. Where basically the girl's like, you know what? This cocky motherfucker. He just walks up, blunt as shit, confident as shit. Like you assume that sex worthiness. You're like, this is me. Just very, very clear. She's not necessarily going to take your word for that. She's like, you know what? He seems cool. He presents himself as being very cool, but it's not that hard to fake, in the first few seconds of an interaction. Like the most pathetic piece of shit on earth, you could probably teach him to be confident for like a minute or two. It's like, dude, just walk up, be confident, talk, break into personality. Here's a few lines, a few things you can say. Just go up and talk to the girl. Anyone can pretty much do that, okay? So the girl's pretty much gonna be like, you know what? He's cool, like, he seems cool, but is he really who he's presenting himself to be? Okay, let's find out. And she's going to test you, or challenge you back, if you will, to see if you're congruent with the way that you presented yourself. Okay, because if you go up and you're just like, bang, like, what's up? I'm Julian. She's like, really? Are you really that confident, or are you just faking it? Test. And if you're someone who just like learned a few lines, or again, that piece of shit who's just like trying to be cool for a minute or two, you're gonna freeze and flip the fuck out. As soon as the girl challenges you back or tries to throw you off your feet, you're gonna be like, oh shit. And the real you, who's not necessarily naturally attractive, is going to come out. Okay, and then she'll be like, ah, got you. You're not sex worthy. Get the fuck out of here. And you're done. Okay, so she's going to test you. Expect it, assume it, and ultimately be happy when that happens. Okay, it's very common to see guys freak out like, oh my God, she's testing me. It's good. Okay, if she's testing you, what does that communicate? Okay, first of all, it means that you presented yourself in a sex-worthy way. Okay, girls are not necessarily that mean. They're not gonna like congruence test or shit test guys who they aren't attracted to. Okay, if they see some little nerd sitting at a table just like very quiet, playing a video game, they're not gonna go up and be like, nice video game, bro, and start like trying to diss the guy playing the video game. Okay, they won't do that. They will only do it if they're like, oh, is this guy a sexual threat? Is this guy man to woman? Is this guy worthy, of like impregnating me, basically. So if they're testing you, that's good. Okay, like be happy. What they're basically doing is creating an opportunity for you to demonstrate your sex worthiness. Okay, and that's really how you should view it. Like you go up to the girl, you're like, hey, what's up? She's like, you can't say that. Or like, really? Really? Like you dare go in that strong? Like what you gonna do? It's like you dare challenge me, I challenge you back. You should not be like, oh, that's bad. You should be like, ah, testing me. That means that, she views me as being sex worthy, like a potential sexual suitor. Awesome. And here's just like an easy way to show her that I'm not affected. It's like I'm not seeking her reactions. I don't care if it's like good or bad. Like my actions pump me up. I'm on my purpose and path. I'm doing my thing. Awesome. And also keep this in mind. Girls love to test guys, and they'll do this on a continuous basis just to experience you passing the test. Okay, like realize it's a massive turn on for a girl when she tests a guy and he just like passes it, or he like challenges her back. She's like, oh, it's like a hit of masculinity, if you will. She's like, oh shit, and then she'll like do it again. It's like, let me experience a little bit more masculinity. Test again. Let's see how he'll react. And you're just like, bitch, please. You just like pass it. It's like more and more of a turn on. So that's also a way of the girl trying to arouse herself, if you will. Again, be happy when that happens and just embrace it. So the best way in general, to pass a test is to remain emotionally unreactive. Okay, now what does that mean? Basically, girls are going to test you when you approach and be like, oh, is that your pickup line? Or like, you know what? It's girls' night. It's girls' night. Or even try to ignore you sometimes, or just give you that stare like, and just not even respond. And they're just gonna see if you emotionally flinch. Okay, like if they're like, you know what? Is that your pickup line? You're like, oh, no, I'm sorry. It's not my pickup line. I was actually trying to say hi. Or like, oh, it's girls' night. Oh, or if she's staring at you, it'll just be like, and she'll just sense you're a little bit more uncomfortable than she is. She will lose attraction. Okay, so in general, the more passive, the better. Okay, you're just very, very grounded. Okay, like remember, as a guy, you're on your path and purpose in life. You know, you're like doing your thing. You don't necessarily need, again, those good reactions. You don't need her validation. You're just like, you know what? It's about me. Okay, and whatever she says, it's not gonna change that shit. Okay, it's like, I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do no matter fucking what. If you walk up and you're like, hey, what's up? And she's like, oh, is that your pickup line? You're just like, yep. Or you could be like, no. Okay, it really doesn't matter what you say. If you're just like, again, you just don't flinch. You're just like icy. Okay, like ice fucking cold. They're gonna be like, oh, holy shit. Like I can't get to this guy. Okay, he knows who he is. He knows what he wants. He's on top of his path and purpose. Okay, so don't emotionally react. That is the best way to go about this. And ultimately realize that whatever a girl says, you know, when she's like trying to test you, it's never going to truly change who you are. Okay, if she's like, you can't say that, or like, you're not cool enough to say that. Okay, if that's like the challenge she puts out there, it doesn't mean that you're not cool enough. Okay, you're not gonna go home that night like, the girl says I wasn't cool enough. I'm not cool enough now. It's like, fuck no. Okay, again, you know who you are more than anyone else. Nothing is going to change that. And that's what she's looking for. She's like, you know what? That strong pillar, that strong reality that has more value than all of the other realities out there. Now keep in mind that being emotionally unreactive does not necessarily mean being unresponsive. Okay, like you still have to keep the interaction going and the girl still has to be able to relate to you. Okay, like there's a difference between her testing you just for the fun of it, like to challenge you, like you can't say that, to her just not understanding, like what the fuck? Okay, and in that case you have to follow the 3 steps that we covered, where it's like, you know what, take a step back, use a statement of empathy, change the topic fast, act as if it never happened, and wash, rinse, repeat until you're on the same page. Okay, if the girl's like sincerely like emotionally disturbed and just can't comprehend, or her buying temperature isn't there yet, don't just be like, haha, I'm challenging her. It's like, oh, listen, I was just kidding, and then find a challenge or something of intrigue that is on that same level that she's able to relate to. Okay, so unreactive, you're still able to talk back and just make sure she's able to emotionally follow where you're at. Now, in terms of verbally responding to a test, you have a few options. Okay, like one could just be responding just very straightforward and just very logically. Okay, for example, she's like, is that your pickup line? You're like, actually, it is. Or she's like, you know what? You're too old or you're too young. You're like, well, I guess I am. Anyway, blah, 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 blah. Okay, it's like, again, she doesn't care so much about the verbal, she's just looking at the emotional reactivity. So you could just answer just very logically, just very blunt, straight to the point. Another way is just not to acknowledge it or answer at all. Okay, realize that you don't have to always like provide like a little answer to whatever she says. If she's like, you know what, is that your pickup line? You're like, anyway, blah, blah, blah. It's like, again, you're leading, you're setting the fucking rhythm. Don't necessarily let her take over that lead and start reacting to her. So you don't have to necessarily acknowledge it. Don't fall into the trap of being like a little people pleaser and try to make everything important. Okay, she's just looking at the emotional, wavelength of the interaction. The third way, and this is probably my personal preference, is to embrace it, kind of like make it your own, and ultimately challenge her back. Okay, so say you take the example, like, you know what, you're too old. Okay, and you'll hear this sometimes, like you're too old or like you're too young. Now, there are 2 ways of kind of like embracing this and throwing it back at her, okay? The first one is to embrace it and exaggerate it, okay? It's like, you know what? She's like, you're too old. You're like, yeah, you know what? I'm so old, like so many wrinkles. I could be like your father. I could be your grandfather. Tell me you like me. Call me daddy. Say daddy, I'm 12. How long have you like wrinkles for, girl? Okay, or something along those lines. Just like exaggerate it, kind of like make it funny and use it for your own amusement. The other way is to exaggerate it in the opposite direction and pretty much just flip it on her and challenge her back. If she's like, you know what, you're too old, you could just be like, you know what, you're too young. You could be my daughter, you could be my granddaughter. You know what, I love little girls. I just love, young little fresh skin or something along those lines there. Okay, so that's like an easy formula to kind of like embrace it. Okay, my general view on tests is it's pretty much like clay. Okay, like the whole interaction is clay, and whatever test she throws at me is just more material okay, for me to just add to the sculpture that is the interaction. If she's like, you're too old, I'm like, oh, what can I do with this? How can I improvise on this in a way that just sculpts the interaction in a better way? Okay, if she's like, you know what? I hate your shirt. You're like, yeah, you know, it's just like, it makes me more attainable. You know, I'm like too beautiful otherwise with a better shirt. You know, it makes girls think that they have a chance. Bang, there's another way of improvising on it. If she's like, you know what? You look like a hipster. You're like, I totally am a hipster. You know, like I listen to Radiohead as I like cry in the shower. Just like exaggerate, like make your own. There's nothing necessarily bad with it. It's just like more material, more content, okay? More for you to just play off of and ultimately create something out of nothing, okay? So those are pretty much the 3 ways of responding to it verbally. Either straightforward answer, just like very simple, like, yep, yes, no, okay, whatever you want to say. 2, don't respond at all, just keep the interaction going, okay, like you're in charge, you're leading. 3, embrace it, okay, it's like clay, it's material for you to play with in a way that's very self-amusing, and you can either exaggerate it in the same direction, okay, like you're too old, I'm so old, I'm your grandfather or your father, or exaggerate it in the opposite direction, okay, where it's like, yeah, you know what, you could be my daughter or granddaughter, you're too young, and challenge her back that way.
This is your outfit, by the way. Your shoes should be black.
I know. I try to. It makes me more attainable.
Are you wearing a belt?
Yeah.
What color is the belt?
Black.
What?
I'm too, because I'm too beautiful otherwise. I'm like too much. My hair is too beautiful. Never, ever do that.
Why not?
Because I'm too shy. And plus,
Why are you too shy? You look very hipster.
I am a hipster.
You are a hipster?
I listen to Radiohead while I'm in the shower.
Hipsters don't like to be called hipsters.
I know. Well, I used to be.
In Richmond, Virginia, everybody's a hipster. So
Really?
it's kind of like by me not being a hipster.
I'd love you if you were hip. You look actually massively hipsterish. Look, untied ghetto shoes, dirty clothes, walking down the street like some lost dog.
And one last easy, you know, like default go-to that I want to throw in here as well is the old school calling her out on trying to step up or trying a little too hard. Okay, and you can pretty much say this to whatever test a girl throws at you. You know, if she's like, you're too old, you can be like, hey, don't try so hard. Like, look, you don't have to try so hard. I like you. It's fine. We're like, hey, don't try to step up. Just like call her out on it. And again, that same like playful little challenging tone. It's like, hey, don't try so hard. What you gonna do? Okay, and also keep in mind laser eye contact. Okay, if the girl's looking for you to flinch, she might see it again, like just in the vibe or in your demeanor, but a lot of it is just in the eyes. Like if you flinch, you'll be like, you'll just like look to the side real fast, you'll be like, got him. So remember, it's like laser eyes, kind of like squint a little bit, be like, hey, don't try so hard. I know what you're up to. Hey, don't try to step up.
You know, I'm the spokesperson for the.
You know, I'm a
not
fucking public
afraid
speaker. I give speeches in front of thousands of people. What are you gonna do?
I'm in
I can
front
stare
of
them
CNN.
down. Look at you, just in your
Million
head,
people.
talking, trying to qualify
CNN.
yourself, trying to prove yourself.
million
Say CNN
people.
again. I've been on CNN proving myself, and now you think shit. I don't know what to say next.
I'm not
I look
afraid
away. I
about
try to
anything.
talk, try to break the tension. I look into his eyes, and I can feel the strong tingleness of my emotions. I get a bit more in my head. He gets closer. His forehead touches mine. I don't know what's happening anymore. I don't know if I should push him off or stare. If I stop staring, I lose the frame. I get in my head again. I stare harder, trying to provoke some anger, but it's not working. He still penetrates through, grabs my shoulder, molests my back, hugs me in again. I push him off, thinking that it'll help, but it just won't help. He grabs my hair. I'm like, damn, this guy could be Alexander Skarsgård, a vampire.
Now don't get paranoid, okay? Not everything is necessarily a test, okay? Once you learn about this, it's very easy to be like, oh, she's testing me all the time. She's out to get me. She's out to see if I'm flinching. Oh, even when she asks me like a basic question, like, what do I do? She's trying to test me. Oh my God, and you kind of slip into that old, you know, like me versus her versus like me and her together, you know, like assuming that familiarity, and you just can't slow down and be real. Okay, if she's like, what do you do? You're like, oh, I work at McDonald's, you know, and like try to exaggerate it, improvise on it. And she's like, no, listen, seriously, I'm not testing you. Like, what do you do? I work at McDonald's. Seriously, what do you do? McDonald's. And you're just like, fuck it up. Okay, like too much of something is always bad. Okay, like just relax again. Like don't view it as like a big deal. Remember, the less of a deal you make out of a test, the better. Just view it like shit, find it funny. If it happens, be okay with it. Don't fall into the trap of being like, again, me versus the girl.